This is part 2 of lesson 4.13, Lewis dot structure. All right, so I'd like you to draw these 3 compounds next. If you notice, all of them have 2 atoms of carbon. The only thing different is how many hydrogens. So go ahead and hit pause and get yourself your answers. And when you're filling these out, so I'm going to start over the answer, we know that the carbons are always going to be in the middle. We know that because carbon can have how many total bonds? 4. And how many valence electrons does it have? 4. And hydrogen can only make how many bonds? Hydrogen can only make 1 bond, and it only needs how many valence electrons for a full outer shell? It only needs 1. So we'll just put a hydrogen at each end here. And again, each hydrogen is going to have 1 valence electron, and so we should be able to easily see how they bond with carbon. If I stopped right there, how many valence electrons does carbon have? Carbon would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 if we bonded them together. That's it. Is hydrogen happy? Yes. Is carbon happy? No. What's carbon going to do? Well, these 2 are going to bond together. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What else is going to happen? These 2 are going to have to bond together. And so they're not going to stay up here and there. They're going to come to the middle, and you're going to have a nice triple bond. If I have C2H4, then what do you think is going to happen? Well, we're still going to start out with our carbons, and they are each going to have how many valence electrons to start with? They're each going to have 4. And hydrogens come along and bond, but I now have 4 hydrogens. All right, so one of my hydrogens can come up here and make a bond. One of them can come up here and make a bond. If they do, how many valence electrons does each carbon now have? And again, when you hand draw the electrons, a lot of times we draw them as X's instead of O's. So now carbon has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 valence electrons. So what does it need to do? Make a double bond. So we'll have the double bond. Versus the last one, we have 2 more hydrogens. So hopefully you can see that they're just going to go right down here in the bottom. And now carbon has a total of 4 bonds and 8 valence electrons. So you can see how carbon can go from having a triple bond to a double bond to all single bonds based on how many hydrogens there are. And again, if you like this method better, you can read through how to do it. So you can hit pause and read that if you'd like. Lewis structures are useful for showing chemical bonding. Lewis dot structures are symbols with dots that represent the valence electrons. Use the periodic table to determine the number of valence electrons. Like, for example, group 1 has how many valence electrons? 1. Group 5 has how many valence electrons? 5. To draw the Lewis structure of a molecule, draw the elements abbreviation, okay, and assemble the molecule's framework by using a central atom and the outside atoms. Which atoms are almost always on the outside? Hydrogen. Determine the total number of valence electrons. Connect the structure by using a pair of electrons to connect the 2 atoms, 1 electron from each atom. Distribute the remaining valence electrons to give each atom an octet. If there aren't enough valence electrons to give each atom an octet using only single bonds, then use double or triple bonds. Atomic models. You can have the Bohr diagram, which shows all electrons, or the Lewis dot diagram, the Lewis structure, which shows only valence or outer electrons.